share with you guys right now. And let's get going. Oop, there we go. All right, so my name is Greg McKenna, and I am the Sustainability Resource Director at HPA. This is actually my 12th year at HPA, where I've had the privilege to be a math and science teacher, a dorm head, an instructional leader, a head water polo coach, and now a parent. I have a little daughter, Zoe, who's in kindergarten and loving all aspects of HPA. Prior to my work at the school, I earned a master's degree in environmental engineering from McGill University in Montreal, Canada. I worked in industry on remediation, site assessments, and water systems for a small environmental engineering firm outside of San Antonio, Texas. But my love for education and engineering have really aligned beautifully in this new role at the school. And as we work to implement the school's sustainability plan in collaboration with the students, faculty, staff, and community. But just like this plan, this presentation must begin with gratitude. Gratitude for this place, this land that HPA calls home. Gratitude for the host culture of Hawaii, whose traditional practices were rooted in sustainability long before this was a challenge. Gratitude for the HPA Ohana, who have loved and served our school since its founding, and gratitude for the generosity of many who have supported the school and made possible the work to place HPA among the most sustainable schools in the world. Oh, I love the music in the background. So, when describing his work, Sir Isaac Newton said, "If I have seen further, is by standing on the shoulders of giants." More cannot be true for HPA in this plan. Sustainability is not a fad or a marketing gimmick for the school. It has long been part of the ethos of this place. The original classrooms, chapel, dorms, and many other buildings on this campus were designed by Vladimir Osipov in the 1960s. He was a pioneer in green building and design decades before a formal movement took hold. Osipov was dedicated to creating beautiful, lasting structures that still honor the natural forces and limitations that surround them. This philosophy and influence remain as relevant and inspiring as new buildings are designed and constructed on our campus. Beginning in the early 2000s, a renewed commitment to the environment at the school was amplified through the work of Ole Jorgensen, Dr. Bill Wicking, who's on this call, and Dighton Emmons as part of the Go Green initiative. Student leadership was key to this work and led to such community-wide events like Earthfest and building out our school gardens. Moving forward, this ultimately led to the construction of the Energy Lab and the installation of several large infrastructure projects to better manage our resources and educate our students in sustainable practices. But this was only part of the work, and it continues today through the implementation of our school's sustainability plan. This plan now serves as a formal guiding document for the school. Supported by a generous grant from the alumnus Jim Kennedy, class of 1966, the planning took place during the 2018-19 school year. It included members of the HPA Ohana and beyond, students, faculty, staff, trustees, alumni, parents, grandparents, community members, cultural practitioners, environmental experts, and more. Over 1,000 people contributed to this great work and received official board approval in April 2019. Rooted in this place and honoring the school's mission and vision, and guided by our school's value, the plan provides a framework for our HPA community to achieve its goal of regenerative sustainability. So let's take a moment now to think about that word, sustainability. What does it mean? And how is sustainability interpreted by each of us? So I'm going to invite you now to use the chat and open up that window and share your own personal definition of sustainability. I'll give you a minute or two to think about it. Thinking forever, beautiful. a regenerative system or community. Living within our means, living simply, only taking what we need. Making changes both big and small in our everyday lives to do what's right for the planet. Oh yeah, here they come, here they come. Planning for water, food, shelter, and for the future. A set of conditions that allows a system to operate optimally and in sync with other systems. The knowledge, skills, habits, and dispositions that show care for ourselves, for others, for our community, for the earth and its resources. Dr. Amy Cole, beautifully written. It's like you know our sustainability plan. Preparing for the future by being mindful of our limited natural resources. Work, act, behave for lasting persistence. Beautiful, beautiful. I teach a class called Sustainability Through Action. It's part of our capstone program. And I ask our students to do the same exercise. Here are a couple of theirs. Creating a balance between the well-being of society, the economy, and yourself without compromising the health of the environment. Being conscious of how your actions affect all aspects of the environment. And doing your part in conserving and helping fix the environment so that future generations have the same opportunities that we did. You know, I love doing this exercise because while we write different things and we say different aspects of sustainability, we're all speaking the same language and we're all talking about thinking forward. We're all caring for each other and caring for this planet. We're concerned with our well-being, but also the well-being of the society, the economy, and our community. And it's really exciting to be at this school who, in this sustainability plan, has put together a beautiful, simple definition for sustainability. Here it is, Malama Kaya Ulu. Simple, clean, short, but it has an incredibly huge and powerful meaning. Malama Kaya Ulu says to care for our community of spirit, land, and people. For me, this means more than just protecting the environment or installing fancy new technology in our buildings. The thing that really speaks to me in this definition is the word malama, or care. This is probably the most relevant part to me and how we can teach Malama Kaya Ulu, because we care for each other. We care for this place, we care for our island, and we care for the connections between it all. And that care is something that is fundamentally part of HPA and its ohana. We care about each other. And rooted in that care, we thrive as a school. So supporting each other to achieve our goals and working together with a common purpose is sustainability. And it's rooted in that care for our community of spirit, land, and people. So to help us achieve our vision for sustainability at the school, we identified 4 essential practices that lead us to actions and habits of mind. These essential practices emerged with the guidance of our Konahiki group of cultural practitioners and place-based educators. They give us a teaching and decision-making tool that is uniquely tailored to the traditions of Hawaii and needs of HPA. So as we look at this circle, we can move, and starting from Kuleana, the first essential practice speaks to our responsibility, but also our privilege to have this responsibility. The next is Pilina, which speaks to the connectedness and the relationships between all things. Then Lokahi, the dynamic equilibrium that we attempt to reach. And finally, Ha'ina, how we share our story. We then set out to establish clear and measurable goals that will transform our teaching and learning, transform our school operations, and have a community impact. So we established 6 goals as part of this plan. The first, around curriculum and programs, is to embed that Malama Kaya Ulu model and framework into HPA's curriculum and program structure to graduate visionary systems thinkers and environmental change agents. Then we looked at our resources, and we set a goal to manage the resources used by HPA so efficiently that we reduce our environmental impact and help promote regenerative systems on the island of Hawaii and beyond. Then we looked at wellness. We must promote human environmental health, recognizing that the two are dependent on each other to ensure that HPA students and staff are well, happy, and thriving. Then we turned to our campus, and we said that we must enhance our campus buildings and grounds to honor the land and provide innovative teaching tools that model sustainability innovation. And sustainability wouldn't be possible without our community, so we must deepen our community connections on Hawaii Island and maximize sustainable progress beyond HPA by sharing our work and our resources. And then finally, through leadership, we must optimize that and create an organizational culture at HPA in order to sustain these commitments. Altogether, this brings us to our teaching framework, Malama Kaya Ulu. This is our model. This is our decision-making tool. And with our vision for sustainability at the center of the circle, we rotate, it didn't work, shoot. We rotate the holes on the pedals through each of the essential practices as we implement different parts of our sustainability plan. So you can imagine that this leadership pedal begins with responsibility, connectedness, lokahi, and haina, and then can continue rotating through that circle as we use it to make decisions and help implement our plan. But this is a powerful tool, not only for implementing our sustainability plan. When we make campus decisions, we can use this tool to help guide our thinking and look at the systems that are connected around that issue. We just recently made a major change to our food at the school, and how we address that change and how we've worked this year to improve our food system was rooted in this Malama Kaya Ulu framework. But it doesn't end there. We can put ourselves at the center of this circle, and our petals become the facets of our lives, our passions. And as we rotate these petals through the essential practices, we look at their connections, but we also look to see which, as Glenn Chickering, who's on this call, loves to say, and I love it, which of these petals isn't getting enough sun and rain? And how do we go about finding that lokahi and bringing that harmony to ourselves in this process, and starting to look inward and assess our own well-being as we reach out to our school, to our jobs, to our families, and to this place to make sure that what we are doing is sustainable and balanced, and we acknowledge the connections. So one challenge that you guys can take with you looking ahead is use it as a reflective tool. Put yourselves in the center and see how your responsibilities, how what you do is connected, what you need to do to bring harmony, and then how you can share that story to achieve sustainability yourselves, and then use that in your daily lives. So I'd like to take some time now to dive into our work as a school as we begin implementing this plan by reviewing each of our goal areas. So throughout this process, I'll point to the different metrics that we use to monitor our progress, which are shown here on this slide. Okay, our 6 goals: resources, campus, curriculum, community, wellness, and leadership. We measure our progress in those areas by identifying measurable data and measurable steps that we can take in these different metrics. So let's get going. Sustainability curriculum. Okay, our curriculum and program is our goal, and our sustainability curriculum is our metric. So what is it that we're doing? Well, for last year's academic year, 67% of the courses offered at HPA were either sustainability focused or inclusive, as defined by the Cloud Institute for Sustainability Education. So no matter what division a student is in at HPA, they're addressing and discussing sustainability topics and themes in all of their classes, or nearly all of their classes. And our goal is to get to that 100% mark. We want our curriculum to be just completely filled with the discussion around sustainability. Okay, but our program doesn't end in our academic classrooms. We have a lot more going on at the school, and we found ways to incorporate sustainability there. So at the middle school, they've started a new advisory program that is called Project Wayfinder. And this is learning about yourself, belonging, caring about the world, and acting with purpose. And this has been a great model for addressing a new advisory system that we're right now in the process of possibly moving to other divisions. We also have our capstone program. Last year was the first year that our capstone program truly was school-wide, with all students in 5th, 8th, and 12th grade participating in these capstones. And they truly are the pinnacle of the learning experience at our school. And they ask students to engage in sustained inquiry, interdisciplinary projects, and develop products that interact with our community. And the essential practices from the Malamakai Ulu framework serve as guides throughout their capstone journey as they reflect on their work and the products that they're developing. Moving on. Our next goal is surround resources. Okay, and these are things that you can see physically on our campus a lot of the time. One major project that we completed since the approval of our plan is that all the upper school classrooms have been retrofitted with LED fixtures. This has had a pretty huge impact on our energy use as a school. Furthermore, we've done some great work the last 2 years, bringing all of our solar up to a fully functioning state. So over the course, we needed to have repairs and maintenance being done. And this was a really great impetus for us to dive into that work and ensure that the infrastructure that we have in place is working and producing power the way we expect. And to understand our energy use and to learn and to have students engage with being change agents, we have implemented a full upper and village campus energy monitoring system. So we can track our energy production and our energy use down to the minute every single day that the campus is in operation. Here's a little bit of data. I love data, and I love that data tells a story. So here are the last 4 years of cumulative energy use on our campuses. And this is total energy use for all of our HPA properties. So this also includes faculty housing and the upper and lower campus. And what you can see right in this line here, there are 3 colors all blurred together, and that's because our energy use from 2017 through 2020 was quite consistent. Now, what happened in March? Well, we had a little bit of COVID, and we did not have classes, so our energy use dropped off a little. But that also gave us an opportunity to make major infrastructure improvements at the school, how we use energy, making those LED improvements in our classroom areas, and bringing back our solar capacity to its full potential, so that this year you can see that our total energy use is drastically different from the 3 previous years. Okay, and this was without any new energy infrastructure. This was just being more efficient with what we use and managing our fixtures so that they're a lot more efficient. So let's talk then about waste. Another goal that we have under resources is to manage our waste. So last year, we did a campus-wide waste audit, both campuses, and it was done by the students, the faculty, and the staff to really understand what makes up our waste stream. And this work allowed us to design a sorting system that has been deployed around campuses, around both campuses, so that we can manage diversion of waste from the landfill. Okay. Another major aspect last year that happened in our Waimea community, or our Big Island community, in fact, is that the guidelines for recycling were tightened up to the point where on this island, the transfer stations only allowed for the recycling of cardboard boxes or brown craft paper. Fortunately, we were able to negotiate with our recycle hauler to maintain our recycling abilities. So we can still recycle plastic, we can still recycle metal, and most importantly, at a school, we can still recycle the paper that we're producing or that we're using around our campus. And this was huge. We've been able to maintain our waste diversion and actually increase it by being able to sort out things like glass and bottles and cans that we can return and redeem for a small amount of money to go into our sustainability budget. But we've also done some pretty major changes around the school as well. So this year, as we started with safety protocols due to the COVID virus, our dining hall operations had to change significantly. But we always kept our goals in mind to care for our community and care for this place. So we needed to manage our waste. And over the course of this year, we've been able to reduce the amount of single-use receptacles and utensils in the dining hall and shift almost entirely back to reusable containers at the upper school, with the exception of certain drinks. And we're on our way to do the same thing at the village campus with some new clamshells that are reusable and washable in the dining hall system. Now, another aspect of our dining hall and food production is the food waste. And it was really hard at the beginning of this year to manage our food waste because it was being thrown out with the disposable items. But we were able to grab hold of that and institute places where students could scrape their food waste and that then be processed away from the landfill. So all the food waste at our school actually goes to either the school gardens for composting, or it's collected by a local farmer who uses it as feed for his pigs. And part of the exchange there is every year we get pigs as that we then can use in our dining hall or as part of traditional ceremonies and luau's that we do on our own campus. Another great story. This showed up in HPA today. So if you've been following the websites, this is on there. But our art department purchased a pug mill. And what is a pug mill? Well, it's a way to recycle and reconstitute wasted clay. So as students in the art department are designing and making these beautiful art pieces, waste is generated. And in most art studios, that waste just gets thrown out. And you can imagine waste clay is not light. But using this pug mill, they're able to take all that waste clay that the students didn't need for their pieces and put it back into circulation, to the point where our art teachers have noticed that the students are more willing to take chances and take risks because they're not wasting clay if they make a mistake. That clay that fell off or that needs to get that just wasn't perfect can get reconstituted and they can start fresh with a new ball of clay. So that's allowed the art department to save a bunch of money, not only in their supplies, but then also give the students that peace of mind that they're not wasting if they make a mistake. Now, waste. I think this was a surprising piece of data when we were looking at it this year. I think the mindset of everyone was, oh my gosh, with COVID, there is so much waste. And it's true. There is so much waste and so many disposable items, gloves, masks, paper towels that have not been part of our waste stream ever. But I think at this school, we developed this sustainability mindset in our students and our faculty and our staff to the point where they see the waste and it's frustrating them. So they're doing whatever they can to minimize their own waste in other ways. And sure, we had a big increase when we started, especially in the dining hall, but we've done a really incredible job of curbing our waste generation since the beginning of the year and really managing to reduce our waste production even compared to the last 2 or 3 years. And this is very encouraging. This speaks to the waste system and to the maintenance workers and the housekeepers who are managing this for us and for our students, that they're taking the care and they're doing this so that it sets our students up for success with their waste. And this has been really encouraging for me looking at it to see, okay, well, in a year where this was a challenge, we did very well. So what could it be in the next years as we move away from and we learn lessons from COVID and how we use reusable items and how we manage our waste, and we're thoughtful about the products that we buy and how we get them shipped to our school. So that was a very exciting thing for us. The third part of our resources is water. And this is a goal item for us, is to really minimize our water use that we're pulling from the county. And a lot of our water use actually has to do with irrigation and managing our fields outside of the playing fields, how those are irrigated, what plants are there, and how we manage to keep them irrigated and growing without using too much water. And again, credit goes to our maintenance team and a lot of people that have been out planting and mulching garden beds and really putting in the work to save water, but still keep our playing fields beautiful and green and lush so that we can have soccer games and baseball games out on those fields in safe conditions. And looking at this data, you can see that we've changed our behavior compared to last year for sure, and even from earlier years. And again, this is encouraging, knowing that we still have a lot of work to do in this area, but by talking about sustainability and having this mindset in our students, that we're making these changes through the work that we're doing in our classrooms and around the school. So next up, the next goal area for us is wellness. Right. And wellness touches a lot of different aspects. But one of the metrics that we're monitoring closely is the amount of local food in our dining hall. So since the mid 2000s, with the creation of our school gardens, they have been growing food that we have been eating and that the kitchen staff has been using in the food in the dining hall. But just recently, we've made connections and major inroads on our island to be able to purchase food from the farmers, and specifically trying to target the farmers here in Waimea. So we've got a great agreement with Hilo Products, which is a wholesaler, but that manages the farms from this island. And we have made huge leaps and bounds for bringing in local produce into our dining hall so that we're eating local and supporting our local farmers and our local community rather than sending that money off island to other farms to get the same food. Furthermore, we track our wellness index, okay? And this has to do with how people feel on this campus, right? And how they behave and how they interact. And so this is our second year of a freshman health class at the upper school. And this was a major initiative that came out of the sustainability plan to address student wellness. Our outdoor program is thriving, and that allows students to engage in this community and with this island in a meaningful and respectful way. And we've set up mindfulness and reflection spaces on both campuses, nestled in nature, so that students can step out, step away, take off their masks, and just be present here in this beautiful place where we're so fortunate to have our school. Speaking of our campus, we have ambitious plans to to increase our certifications. And this is in several different ways. We have a LEED certified and Living Building Challenge certified building in the Energy Lab. And our goal is, as we improve or renovate new or existing buildings, that we bring them up to the LEED certification standards. And any new construction that comes on campus follows that same certification. Furthermore, we want all of the adults working at this school to be green classroom professionals. And this year, we are 98% of the way to getting all of the adults on this campus certified through that program. And that's an increase from last year, where there were a few people that somehow slipped through the cracks. Additionally, talking about water, land use is super important. We have a 200-acre campus at the upper school that we manage, and how we manage it is super important and needs to reflect our sustainability goals at the school. So as you look around campus, we've been planting small gardens, and there's a lot of work that's come from our staff and our faculty and the people living on this campus to improve those gardens with mulch, with native plants, and really manage them so that they don't need to be regularly watered and they can just thrive in their native habitat. We've also initiated a sustainability campus master planning process to really take a deep look at this space and how we use our land and what impacts are we going to have with any new facilities that we either bring or build to this campus. Next, our community. Our sustainability vision is Malama Kai'u, is to care for our community, right? So this year, we have not had the ability, as we've had years before, to reach out and do as much community service as we would like, but it's coming back. And there's a great event planned to honor the beginning of Earth Day, where students will be able to engage with opportunities for community service in the community. I guess that's pretty relevant. But we've been able to use targeted ways to still engage with our community. So one example is our capstone students are working on products and having them engage with mentors, with people who are invested in their products, with people buying their products and giving feedback. And that's been great to have people from our community and our alumni to help these students develop these projects. We also just, at the middle of this year, a garden intern position, and actually 2 garden intern positions were funded through a grant to enhance the community connection to our school gardens. So on a weekly basis, our gardens are harvesting their produce and splitting it between our dining hall and the community. And they help serve and feed the community through the weekly community meal at the St. James Church. And that's been a consistent way that we've been able to do community outreach and provide products from our school that benefit the community. And then more so recently, we have several community members. I'm going to shout out to James Hustis, who's an active member in the Waimea Community Association and helping to lead that association in making sustainable change in our community. But we're also part of the Big Island Sustainability Summit that just happened at the beginning of this month to really look at our island situation and be part of the conversations around similar goals that have been set forth at the county level to help bring the Big Island forward and achieve some of our Aloha Plus goals within the state. And then finally, the goal around leadership, right? And this year with COVID, it's been a challenge, but a huge shout out to Amy Cole, who's on here, who helped create our virtual learning community. And these weekly PD sessions have been a huge blessing to the school and a way for people to engage with subject matter experts who are already here at the school, learn from them and improve their own craft and practice as teachers, learning from each other. We also this year started the Kaulu Kukui teacher program, which is a program to mentor and nurture young educators. And we had 5 Kukui teachers this year who have been part of that program. And looking ahead, we're actively engaged in professional development for our faculty and staff, specifically designed around sustainability and using the Malamakai Ulu framework in their classrooms and in their decision-making processes. And that is our plan for the next year of PD. How are we doing? Everyone's still there? All right, I'm going to take just a couple more minutes and I'm going to give you a glance at some of the priorities and the next steps that we can be, or that we plan to take to push our metrics and to continue to strive to achieve our goals through our sustainability campus master planning process. And these are major infrastructure programs and they take time, but talking about them and planning them and working with our community to set them up is a huge part of this process. So here we go. We have a renewable energy plan, right? And this is not just a quick 1, 2, and we're done. There need to be several steps for us to be moved to no-grid electricity and to really reduce our energy use to completely renewable sources as our goal. So the first is, how can we take our campus off-grid, right? And we're actually a long ways towards achieving that goal. We have more solar on our campus than we're able to use during the day. And the next step is then to capture that excess storage or that excess power production and store it so that we can use it overnight. And that's a big step. It's going to require the installation of batteries and upgrading part of our electrical system, but it is super achievable in the near term. Next, we need to look at other carbon sources. How can we get away from fossil fuels in all of what we do? And part of that is propane elimination. We use propane around our school to heat water, to cook in some of our vehicles, and electrifying those processes or switching to alternative fuels will help us eliminate propane use on our campus. Next, we need to electrify our fleet. We have, gosh, I think we have 12 short haul buses. We have many maintenance vehicles, campus vehicles, small, large, you name it. And electrifying those vehicles will eliminate our need to be purchasing fuels for our current fleet. And then finally, as we continue to improve this, looking at alternative fuels, and an exciting alternative fuel is hydrogen, and how we use that in our cooking, how we use that in our vehicles, and how we then, any excess, store it and take that energy back through a fuel cell to offset our electrical uses is really exciting. Additionally, we need to be thoughtful of both campuses, right? And we need to look at installing a PV and storage system at the Village campus as well to reduce and offset our electricity use there. Next, in terms of water, the first step is really to just add building level metering so that we can, in a similar way to our electricity use, and we saw immediately the benefits of understanding where our electricity is going and how we can reduce it. We need to do a similar thing with water. And then just like upgrading electric fixtures to LED, we need to replace old toilets, old sinks, showers with WaterSense and retrofit those fixtures so they're more water efficient. The next step obviously would be to use rainwater collection. We have a ton of roof space on this campus. And even if we use it to collect solar energy, that same roof space can be used to collect rainwater. This is an example from our energy lab. And again, using our own buildings as models for future work is super important, because the students have been engaged with those buildings already and have been engaged with those processes, so we can easily transfer that to the Ossipoff classrooms that have existed since the 60s. An ambitious goal that would then be to look at treating our own water on site. If we really care about our water use, we need to care about our water effluent as well. And incorporating something like a living machine to be able to treat our water to a potable standard that we can then reuse on our campus would be incredible. In terms of curriculum, wellness, and our campus, we do need a few more facilities. Part of that would be new classrooms, new collaborative spaces, new teaching facilities for our students that model, or that have systems that model these sustainable initiatives. And then we don't need to knock down and rebuild everything, but we do need to be thoughtful about how we renovate, so that as we make upgrades and make improvements, that we manage them through the LEED certification process. All of this and everything that we do at our school helps develop this sustainability mindset. And we're seeing it percolate through our students and through our campus already. But with every change that we can make towards achieving our sustainability plan goals, the better we are at instilling the sustainability mindset into our students. So as they go off and have futures solving problems that we don't even know exist, they're doing it from the space of sustainability rather than for profit, for growth. And if we can achieve that and are working with our students, then we've been incredibly successful in our plan. So that's the end of my talk. I would like to thank you all for being part of this and listening and taking it all in. And I would encourage you to reach out with me if you'd like to learn more or further these conversations. You can find me at the school, either campus. I'm usually at both. And if it's easier, you can reach out to me directly by email, gmckenna@hpa.edu, or else just throw sustainability@hpa.edu and you're going to get me as well. So thank you so much. That's the end of my talk. Let's take a dive into some questions.
Thank you, Greg. I really appreciate you walking us through all of that. I do want to start with some of the questions that people put into their Google form when they signed up for this. But if other questions have occurred to you while Greg's been talking, please throw those in the chat, and we'll pull those out and talk through some of those as well. Greg, I think you mentioned in a couple of spots, you mentioned carbon, and there were a couple of questions in the form about either carbon neutrality as a possibility for something that the HPA might think about, or purchasing carbon offsets and tackling carbon removal. Could you maybe address some of that?
Absolutely. Thanks. When this plan was originally created, we wanted to use it as a pedagogical tool. And we wanted to have goals that students could relate to directly with their work. One of the benefits of our goals is that they all work towards reducing our carbon footprint. And the carbon impact of a business or a school like ours is incredibly relevant now. And our work isn't to only tackle our goals, but is to share our story. And through that work, we need to be reporting our carbon footprint. And as we move forward from this point, that is something that we are going to be doing. And that will become something that is accessible through the website.
Great. Thank you, Greg. Can you also, I love this question. It said, given our mascot, has wind ever been considered as a viable source of energy for the campus?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think honoring Kamakani on our campus through our energy projects is super appropriate. Fortunately, where we are now, we have an incredible energy production infrastructure. And where we need to put that next step is into storage, but that doesn't mean that wind doesn't have a place. For example, our upper campus garden is going through an off-grid electrification right now. And part of that system is a small windmill to support the loads overnight and during the day. And wind is great here because it blows almost all the time versus solar that only shines during the day. So having that complement in the garden is going to really help take that system on offline and allow us to use that as a data point and let students engage with it to see how does the wind really help offset our loads, and is it something that we should consider in the future, and at what scale. And then if the scale is so big, we may not be able to put in a large windmill to meet those needs. And then that is part of the conversation using the Malama Kaulu framework. What other systems does that impact? And, that might change our decision that actually we need to revert back to solar for our energy production. But it is absolutely appropriate, and it's being used all over campus in small scales. Dr. Bill has several weather stations set up, and majority of those are being powered partly by wind, which is super exciting.
Great. Greg, a question was put in, and you actually touched on this a little bit when you talked about waste, and you showed the graph around waste. You talked about that everybody was thinking with COVID times there would be a lot more waste. One of those areas would be around disposable masks. And so there was a question, would HPA consider banning disposable masks for the next school year? Not right away, but as we approach the 21-22 school year.
You're asking the sustainability resource guy. Absolutely, I would be on board with that for sure. One of my big initiatives over this last summer was to gather reusable masks so that every student and every adult at our school had at least one reusable mask from the beginning of the year. And we've seen it through student capstones and their initiatives. How can we make masks that our students like and enjoy wearing, so that they don't just revert to a disposable mask? But engaging with that decision around our Malama Kaulu model or framework is super important, because we need to look at what else is mask wearing connected to, and are there needs for people to have different types of masks, and how should we consider those needs?
Great. Greg, another question came in that was around, actually a couple questions around textbooks. It was around, could we investigate having some sort of buyback program for books so that we don't have the inefficiencies of shipping these books from the mainland and getting them here, and then having books just lying around people's houses. And similarly, along that same line, perhaps a used book swap to encourage sharing of old books.
Yes, definitely. So one of the, as dorm head several years ago, one of the things that we started was a sharing table. And that sharing table was some bits of clothes, some electronics, and books. And in the dorms, that's evolved into a true end of the year swap share, where students are donating textbooks that they're not going to be keeping, and allowing anybody to look through that and grab the ones that they know they'll need for the next year. I think as an institution, that is definitely something that we're working on. I know that the principals at each division are exploring all different alternatives for textbooks, whether that is class sets, whether that's electronic textbooks, whether that's no textbook, and what that looks like in their specific divisions and in each of those course levels.
Greg, a question just came in through the chat, a question about, have we thought about gray water reuse as a first step towards meeting our water goals? Yeah,
and I think one of the, I don't know, I love piloting things, and I love having a little test area where we could try these things out. Gray water is often used as an irrigation supplement, and we have a lot of gray water produced in our dorms. And it's something that I've talked with TJ, who's our director of facilities, about the possibility of using the dorms as a test bed for projects like that. Because you're absolutely right. Does it make sense to treat all of our water? Absolutely not. And where we could use some gray water with either only minor treatment or no treatment to help offset some of that county use, especially around irrigation. Another interesting one that we're talking about is paper towels, kind of getting back to waste. And at this point, there are paper towel dispensers in the dorms. And that's probably the first place where we don't need paper towels. Everyone there has their own personal towels. And removing those and replacing them either with vented hand dryers or just requiring students to bring their own to wash it and dry their hands with would be a great way to start testing how we can reduce waste in those areas. Similarly, how we can better use and manage our water in those areas.
Good. I'm going to put a couple of questions together here, came from some different sources, but a question around, could we organize voluntary, regular beach cleanups to help around the island? Could we have maybe a tree planting project either here on the grounds at HPA or somewhere nearby? And similarly, how do we get them to volunteer for these? How do we get information out to people so that they can join in these sustainable different projects that we have?
Absolutely. Oh man, we have such a passionate and engaged community. And I feel like this year has been the hardest year for the HPA Ohana because access to campus has been so limited. And access to community service representing HPA has also been super limited. But that doesn't mean that we can't do it. I'm excited for an upcoming Earth Fest event, April 16th. We're going to invite students from the upper school to all get together and learn about Earth Day and celebrate ways that they can make a difference. And part of that is signing up for and engaging with community service through that week. Earth Day is Thursday, April 22nd. And there are so many events around this island that support and celebrate that day. And in finding ways for our students to get off campus to support those safely, minding COVID practices is super vital. As campuses open back up, we always have parents on campus volunteering to help improve campus, to plant, to be a part of the garden, to support Willie and Kim in their work. But we also have been taking students off campus to do similar things. We have a great relationship with the folks who manage the nature trail in town or the nature park in town, and helping to keep that clean and make plants, plant native plants is super important. And it aligns directly with our sustainability plan. So how do we do it? We are starting by reaching out back to the places where we've engaged with community service, and we're actively making it happen so that we can do it safely. And as we do more, then we can open it up to involve more of our students and more of our Ohana to participate as well.
Awesome. Thank you, Greg. Two last questions here. One, you've touched on this a little bit, but can you just talk about what happens with the food waste in our dining room again? And are there other ways that we can reach out and help address perhaps food insecurity in the community, including things like you mentioned some of the new partnerships with some of the local farmers here in Waimea, possibility of gleaning their product and helping get that back into the community in other ways?
Yeah, for sure. So our food waste at this point is collected and either composted or turned into pig feed. And we have, those are mutually beneficial arrangements because now the compost is feeding the plants in our school gardens, and we're helping to support a local pig farmer who is also supplying us with food. So those are great situations, but we can obviously do more. I'd love to highlight some of the senior capstone projects this year that have been really working to do that, to reach out to farmers, to gather up the last bits of harvest that they can't sell, but that are still edible and good, and redistribute that. Sarah Newcomb is a student, and she has been engaging with the Catholic Church and pairing the food drives that they do with local farmers. And that's just an example of the power of students who've embraced this sustainability mindset and are finding ways to connect all those pieces in the system so that our community is cared for and is improved.
Great. All right, last question for you, Greg. You covered most of this. But the question came in, it was, this was from before the presentation, asking about what are the sustainable campus projects and infrastructure improvements that you have planned. But the other part of the question was, what's the timeline? When will these things happen? So maybe you can address that second part. What is the timeline for all those things that you mentioned, and some other things too, I think, that you have in mind?
Right. Well, I think the first timeline is the timeline for this plan, right? And our goals are to be achieved by 2030. So 10 years from the implementation of this plan, we're hoping to have 100% renewable energy, reduce our water use by 70%, become a zero waste school, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So how does that relate to these infrastructure projects? Well, each of these projects is a step along the way to that goal. And what is the timeline to get storage on this campus so that we can capture the excess solar energy produced during the day and use it in the evening? Well, the timeline for that work, the work is not that long. It's a year, 18 months. To start that project, however, requires an investment. And we've been so fortunate and so blessed to be able to do so much work in the area of renewable energy and sustainability, thanks to the generosity of alumni, of grants, of donors who have made this work possible at our school. And we can make small changes. We can be the boots on the ground, and we can have an effect on our wellness by implementing a no idling policy at drop-offs and pickups. And that's an easy win. We can have the students work towards writing a policy for a plastic bottle ban so that we're not providing plastic bottles to anyone on our campus, and that we're essentially refusing them if they arrive. These big infrastructure projects all have a construction timeline of about 2 years. And there's some obviously that need to happen strategically to make the next one a possibility. But the big issue around that is how can we fund those? And we have this incredibly generous community that we're reaching out to for support in this work.
I'll just add to that. I know that there's work being done to create a timeline of some of those low cost and no cost initiatives, so that as we start next school year, we can say, here's the order in which we want to do these. We can't do them all at once, but we can do them in this order to make sure it makes the most lasting change for the school.